Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Secrets of the Sire radio show and podcast. Coming to you live from a super secret location. Namely, I have my tea in hand. I have my vitamin C. It's been a rough week just getting over a cold. So instead of trekking to New York City, we're actually broadcasting live from a super secret location, which is my house. But we are excited to have you guys here. It's very strange not talking into a mic. It's strange talking into a headphone. But we've done some on-location shots, so now we're doing the first on-location shot from my studio office. So welcome, everyone, Secrets of the Sire. We do this every week. We talk comics, movies, TV, music, and pop culture. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on talkingalternative.com. We also stream it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire. We're going to try our best to get our streaming video when we have our interviewee on. His name is Jason Powell. He's the author of the definitive Chris Claremont book. He is going to break down the epic 18-year run coming up later on in the show. But first, we have a sponsor. We'd like to get that. And we want to welcome all of our Periscope peeps. We want to welcome all of our Facebook peeps as well. Dan T. Lawson, Jersey Jedi, what's up? Ferdio's Turk just joined. Awesome. Good to see you as well, too. And Rusty Honda, I think, was on there. And welcome Adam Kelsoy. We're going to be breaking down Westworld season finale, so, hang with us. But first, the holidays can be overwhelming and awkward. What do you do in between meals to entertain your restless children and hungry adults? Introducing Fun Food Flip, the card game that takes your love of food and shares it with the family. Each player gets dealt a hand of food cards and must come up with the most gross, most interesting, or most delicious combinations from each of the 4-course categories. Not only is it fun, but it could even help you plan your holiday menu. Go to funfoodflip.com now and experience it for yourself. And as a bonus for our listeners, again, this is a weekly talk show, radio show, and podcast, get 15% off the retail price this week only. It's a limited time offer. Check out funfoodflip.com. And as always, we want to shower our beloved patrons with love on the air. Again, if you go to michaeldolce.com, I have a Patreon page for the show. This is Secrets of the Sire, talking comics, movies, TV, pop culture every week. We have dedicated fans Einar Peterson and Ashley Haikai, our program director Stephanie Dolce, our executive producers Steve Hovecki and Brian Phillips, and as always, our Uber fan Christina Dolce, and like I said, our new sponsor Lynn Levy from Fun Food Flip. Love you guys. Again, support the show any way you can. We're on YouTube. We're working on getting that YouTube URL. Google's a real pain in the butt, but you could search Secrets of the Sire. We're on iTunes. We're on Google Play. Any podcasting app. We're on, like I said, facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire and Periscope at Michael_Dolce. So check us out. All right. Westworld finale. I know that's why some of you guys are on here. If you haven't checked out Westworld, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Honestly, it's the best show since Game of Thrones. We've got so much to discuss. We really do. First of all, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the awesome, okay? The awesome is going to focus on what's to come, because that's my big question mark after watching the finale. What is going to come with the show? It ends in such a way, and Sam and I, we were talking behind the scenes. If you're an executive producer, you actually get access to behind the scenes through a special Google Hangout. Again, michaeldolce.com. Go check it out. And, I got him into the show, which is awesome. I'm very happy that I did. Welcome Alex Main 4, and someone else just joined too. I apologize, I missed them. But, Sam and I were talking about this, and my engineer, welcome Brian Everham. What did I think of the finale? I thought that if the show ended right there, like right there, like if it was a 1-season show, and that's it, it's perfect. I know everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens. Robots versus humans, robots working with humans. There's definitely some tidbits of where they're going to go with the show. But everyone's character arc sufficiently was fulfilled. For the most part, with the exception of a couple stray characters, which we'll talk about next segment, that kind of, we don't know what's going to happen with them. Is Elsie still alive? The head of security, where's that guy? Everyone's story arc was fulfilled. Everyone's story arc kind of reached a satisfying enough conclusion. I know some people were happy with certain things. I was reading a lot of recaps. One thing I want to touch on, too, is I'm really, really happy that I stayed off social media for the majority of this show. Now, this is the obligatory, if you haven't watched the finale, close your ears. Don't ever tune out. I mean, that's the first thing I gotta tell you. Don't tune out. Just keep, just at least watch me mime. You can check out my Ninja Turtle shirt if you're streaming us. If you're on Talking Alternative, just maybe don't listen as hard. But never turn it off. That's the shameless plug first. But this is the spoiler time. This is where we're going to get into details about the finale. So if you haven't seen the finale, you haven't seen the show yet, I don't know what you're doing if you haven't seen the show. The show's awesome. You definitely need to do it. It's just great. Go ahead and do it. Binge it. It's 10 episodes. You'll get through it in a weekend. Not even. You'll get through it like overnight. Easy. Everyone's story arc met a satisfying conclusion, right? We had the Men in Black. Man in Black's a movie. We talked about that in the previous episode. I think it's episode 27. MIB 23. Go check that out. The Man in Black's arc was so fulfilling at the end, right? Now, he's supposed to be the villain, right? I actually take a different take on it. Yes, he's a villain of sorts, but watching William and watching that entire arc lead up to where he became who he was in the park. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, I guess the whole basis of the show is it real versus human? Is an android real because they have consciousness? How are they any less or more real than a human being? Understood. I get it. Completely get it. But at the end of the day, he's being vicious, he's being mean, he's actually doing all of this to androids, right? I mean, that's essentially what he is doing. So is he really a villain? Now, I feel like by the end, yes, he's done horrific things. He's a terrible, terrible person, but I don't know. I don't really see him as a villain. I see him as a man on a quest, right? An antagonist, yes. An antagonist for Dolores. But then you realize at the end when you find out that William is Man in Black, she drove him to be the Man in Black. A lot of great stuff. There was this really great Hollywood Reporter article, and they give you all the hints about what details kind of led up to this point where, the Man in Black is actually revealed to be William. Now, first of all, I stayed off social media for this show. I'm really happy I stayed off social media for this show. Except one time I happened to just see in my Twitter feed something that says, "Is the Man in Black William?" And I'm like, I never would have even... I honestly, and maybe I'm just dense, or maybe I'm just not following it as closely as other people are following it, never would have guessed that they were the two, that they were the same, especially with the mole. I mean, the mole, Ed Harris doesn't have a mole. This guy does have a mole. Jimmy Simpson. How would I even know that they're the same? But when I saw that, I actually really liked that. I thought that the arc now made a lot more sense, that they're traveling in different points in their history. I thought that was brilliant. I really did. I thought that was a brilliant means of filling us in on the backstory. At the same time, we're engaged in this like epic struggle that William is involved in. But here were some of the clues, though. A September 30th tweet from HBO noted that even logos deserve a deeper look. Fans took that advice. As soon as William's first episode, when he arrives in the park, the Westworld logo is different than the one seen in every other instance. Surface details, there's a noticeable physical resemblance. Yes, there is. The stiffened lips, the piercing eyes, the low-tone voice, and so on. The mole discrepancy, they do mention that as well, too. Returning to multiple time frame theory, episode 9, when Logan, Ben Barnes, shows off a photo of his sister, a.k.a. William's fiance, it's the same photo that triggers Peter Abernathy, that character, back in the premiere, strongly suggesting that William's story takes place in the past. So we welcome Ad Hui to the park as well. Angela, the host who introduces William to the park, reappears in episode 8, Trace Decay. The Man in Black recognizes the woman and remarks, "I would have thought they retired you." It suggests a man who hasn't seen this woman in a very long time. She's the one that first introduces William to the park. I mean, there's definitely a lot of hints here. William first meets Dolores when he picks up her can of food in the middle of Sweetwater. It's eerily reminiscent of Dolores and Man in Black's second scene together in the pilot, only more so when you view William as a younger version of an old killer. In the 5th episode, the Man in Black kills traveling companion Lawrence in a remote section of the park. Almost instantly, Lawrence reemerges in the William and Dolores story, yet another suggestion that William and Men in Black were the same person operating at different moments in time. That was the biggest one for me, where it was kind of like, okay, that one makes sense, because even at the time, you kind of sit there and go, well, maybe there's multiple robots, maybe they actually do have more than one of the same character in the park at the same time, but that was the one that really does tip it, it does tip it over as it kind of goes along. All right, was the reveal satisfying? That's the other thing that's that's really in question, right? I mean, was the whole journey for the Men in Black satisfying? So there's a couple things. One, I didn't, and again, I don't view him as a villain. I don't. I know he started out as a villain, but when you see his arc, I don't think his arc is one of a villain. I know he's a killer. I get that, but he's killing androids. He knows he's killing androids. He's killing things that don't exist and aren't real because they can't make their own choices. It's like killing your toaster. It's like killing your. Well, you would never kill your laptop. If I killed my laptop, my whole business would be out. But so is he really a villain? And what's it going to be in season 2? Because he is back in season 2. That's he's all but confirmed that. Not all but. He has confirmed. Ed Harris has confirmed. He will be back in season 2. So the question is, is he going to now... I mean, is he going to be a killer? I don't think he is. I don't think he ever was. I think this is a way for him to kind of, free himself from reality, free himself from the person he was. He can be this person that maybe he couldn't be somewhere else, This is what I saw from his journey. I didn't see it as, as him being this villain. But was his journey satisfying? It was. I mean, it basically, looking at Dolores at the end, when William finally realizes that, she's been mind wiped, and she's not who he fell in love with, and that person's gone. I mean, that can definitely mess with you, and it definitely messed with him. There's no question about it. It definitely... you could definitely tell it messed with him. You could definitely tell it drove him to kind of, be who he was. But I never got the sense that I think maybe because they only showed it briefly in the end of that last episode where he's starting to really kill them with the knife when he's actually striking them with the knife. Which, again, once you see the knife, you're like, okay, that's him. Obviously, it's definitely him. That's definitely his knife. It almost reminded me of episode 2 of Star Wars, where they kind of hint at Darth Vader being evil, but they never go full evil with him in his backstory. Even episode 3, by the time episode 3 comes around, I don't quite see, Anakin Skywalker being Darth Vader. I don't make that connection of how you go from being someone who has empathy and sympathy to being just this cold-blooded Jedi killer. I kind of felt the same way about this. I felt the same way in this arc. I didn't quite see it, and again, that's why I don't view him as a villain necessarily. I view him as somebody who is on a journey and was shown a specific path, and that's essentially where I'm at right now. So, all right, when we come back, Ford's journey. Anthony Hopkins, was his journey satisfying, and is he going to be back next season? I think he might when we come back. And welcome all Periscope and Facebook people. You guys actually get the luxury of hearing me today because we are not in studio. Unless that's Sam going to tweet me that you can hear me and I'm ruining the commercial for him. I'll mute me if that's the case. No, it's good. So, any Westworld fans out there? I know we have... Well, I have my wife who's upstairs actually on, which is kind of fun. She could always come down and visit. Brian Everham, welcome as well. Dan Lawson, welcome. Thanks for listening to the podcast last week. Oh, spotted premiere start. Go see Westworld. Is Westworld, you're talking about Westworld. All right, we're coming back online. Welcome back, Secrets of the Sire. We do this every week, Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, talkingalternative.com. Now, normally we do this from New York City, but tonight I was under the weather all week, a little worse for the wear. My voice, you can probably hear it a little bit down. So for coming from an undisclosed location, which is my office, essentially. So it's good to have you. Good to have Espada Primera Stark, our weekly regular. If you really dig the show, we appreciate you sharing the Facebook feed if you can, which actually I should do right now, which was kind of dumb of me not to do. I definitely think you should also go like us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire. You can also go and check us out on Twitter. We're at Michael_Dolce. You can call in at any point. We got a great guest coming up next segment, but right now we're still talking about Westworld. Westworld finale, and that's the big talk. Now, Sam actually had a really great point. Sam's our engineer, the guy who runs our station as well too. And again, I got Sam into it. Man in Black was looking for an entire, we was looking for robots to fight back. Now has an entire clan of them, and kind of leave him in a cliffhanger, like, oh, is he going to make it out? Ed Harris said he's going to make it out. He's definitely. But that's the question, though, right? Is he going to be a villain next season? I don't think he is. I think that he was looking for a challenge now. He was also striving for consciousness for these robots too. And now, what's he going to do once he experiences robots with consciousness? He's not going to be, in my mind, maybe he will be. I don't know. Maybe he's so far, past the point of William that he's now just the Man in Black and he's a cold-blooded killer. Maybe that's who he's going to be next season. One thing next season we may or may not see is Anthony Hopkins. Now, Anthony Hopkins sounds like an actor who signed up for one season, and at the end, obviously, again, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Westworld season finale, don't turn it off, just look away. You could stare at my face the entire time. That's perfectly acceptable. Anthony Hopkins' arc, ended with him going out the way Arnold went. Again, that's kind of what I said. If this show doesn't come back for season 2, I think everything's fine. I actually don't need to know what happens next to have enough ideas as to what happens next, but everyone's arc just circled perfectly. There's a couple of extraneous characters that we don't know whose fate is what. You have Maeve at the end too. Before we get into Anthony Hopkins' arc, we have Maeve who decides, or does she? That's a good question, right? Her programming was to escape. Does she escape, or is her programming now to go find this daughter that she's still attached to because she can think for herself now? That's something that I think was well done. Her arc is one of choices, and she thought she was making choices. Then she found out she wasn't. She was part of Ford's narrative the entire time, but now is that last choice hers or not? It's a great way to end. I don't need to know more. I don't need to know more. Ed Harris, that look on his face, that's what Sam had kind of mentioned, he's wanted robots to fight. Now he's got them. Now he's got them. And is that something we need to see going forward? I don't know. I don't think we do. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about that. Ford's entire run now. Now, this was a fan theory that came up, but I actually thought of it myself, though, right? And Sam actually said it to me. He says, it sucks that, Anthony Hopkins gets killed at the end, because he won't be back. Well, we know he won't be back. Will he now? Because there are scenes in the previous 3 episodes where you see when we learn Bernard is as a host, and then we learn that Bernard is Arnold, Anthony Hopkins is building a host that entire time. And I originally thought it was going to be Bernard's lover, the security chief that he killed. I thought that Anthony Hopkins Ford was going to place a host in her place, because I thought he felt that the army, that the the board was he knew the board was muscling in on him, so he knew that this final that he needed a way to stop them. That's what I originally thought. But when she was just dead, no, I knew, okay, something's up with this host, and they never explained that. So to me, it's definitely an opportunity for Anthony Hopkins to come back. And Jonathan Nolan, who we're going to talk about in the 4th segment, we're already almost through 2 segments here, which is crazy. And there's just so much to talk about. But we're going to talk about Jonathan Nolan, the impact he has, and the credit we have to give him now for Batman, right? You watch a show like Westworld, and originally Batman was written by Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan and David Goyer. And you sit there and go, okay, David Goyer, guy's an industry pro. He's a comic fan. You know, he wrote a great script. Christopher Nolan probably did a lot. Christopher Nolan, you know, who's Jonathan Nolan? We know he's Christopher Nolan's brother, but, you know, what kind of storyteller is he? We don't know his impact. I'm wondering how much impact he now had, as we welcome at Malu87. I'm wondering how much impact Jonathan Nolan now had on those Batman movies. Because they were so great, and they were deep, and they were awesome, and to see that same level translate to this show versus David Goyer, who kind of wrote the screenplay for Batman v Superman, I believe it was him, or he wrote Man of Steel. He wrote one of those two. I don't remember off the top of my head. Zack Snyder flicks, not that good. David Goyer wrote Blade 3, directed it, not that good. You know, all of a sudden I was giving a lot of credit to David Goyer for the success of those Batman franchises. Maybe Jonathan Nolan deserves more. I don't know anybody that gave him any credit for any of those films, but now you watch him in Westworld, amazing. Like you definitely, you definitely see the impact he's had. Yes, Malu87, the Westworld finale was awesome, and I agree. I mean, that's basically what we've been talking about. For anybody catching up, we do this every week. The Secrets of the Sire, talking comics, movies, TV, pop culture. In this particular case, we're talking Westworld. Finale was amazing. And I throw it out to you guys, though. I mean, do you need to see a season 2? Is there a part of, and one of the things we want to talk about, right? And one of the angles that I want to take with this. I don't want this ending up like True Detective, okay? That's my biggest concern, right? I don't want this turning into True Detective. I don't want this, I don't want this turning into the most amazing first season and then the rest just pale in comparison, right? I mean, Heroes was like that. First season was great, and the subsequent seasons never could live up to it. I was a Veronica Mars fan. I don't know if you guys ever watched that. That show was built for one season. It had a murder mystery, and everything resolved by the end. Had a twist. It was awesome. Every season after that. Malu87. Heroes really went downhill. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no question about it. Heroes really went downhill after season 1 because they just couldn't sustain. It was almost as if they didn't have an exit strategy. They never planned ahead. Now, the good thing about Westworld is they've been plotting this out for years. They're not coming back until 2018. I like that move. And Jonathan Nolan in a recent interview said, look, movies take every 3 years. Okay, Mal87, great point. What about Game of Thrones? Just gets better and better in my eyes. Okay, here's why Game of Thrones has 6 books to work from. So George R.R. Martin had 20 years of material to give the producers and say, here's how it's supposed to go. I mean, it's essentially an outline. You can't mess up Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin did that. This is something completely fresh. Westworld is based off a movie. You do have material in the movie. Samurai World, which we did see in the finale, which was pretty awesome. But Samurai, but all this stuff, they have a movie to base themselves off of. But that's it. They're essentially rewriting this from scratch. They're in the middle of a writer's room right now. They're in 10 weeks. 10 weeks, the writers have been sequestered writing season 2. And they have it planned out for 5 years. But this show has been in development for 2 or 3 years. Jonathan Nolan is essentially treating this like a movie, and he says, usually a movie takes 3 years, a TV show takes 1 year. We're splitting the difference, and we're doing 2 years. So yes, it won't be back until 2018, but I'm actually happy. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to know, I'm essentially happy that is the route that they're taking. We welcome ND Nate. We welcome Malu87. We welcome Jersey Jedi, who's always on, which we love them. We love Espada Premier Stark. We love Dan T. Lawson. We love Christina Dolce. We love Brian Everham. We love all the folks that come here every single week. We do this every single week. Secrets of the Sire, talking comics, movies, TV, pop culture. We're going to take a break from Westworld, but hang on tight because we've got Jason Powell, the author of the definitive Chris Claremont X-Men book, coming up next. Thank you, Periscope and Facebook folks. We're actually on commercial break. If you go to talkingalternative.com, you can actually listen to the radio show. This is a 1-hour radio show. It streams live. Normally, I do this from New York City, but I mean, not that you would know if you'd never heard me before. My voice is shot right now. I've been sick all week, so I'm doing this from an undisclosed location rather instead. So usually we pump the feed of the show into the phones when we stream this. In this case, you get a little behind the scenes. So, but yeah, Westworld, crazy. I'm trying to see. Hello, at Paulo Wallace. Good to see you as well, too. All right, we're going back on live. Again, it's talkingalternative.com radio. Welcome back, Secrets of the Sire. We do this every week on talkingalternative.com. We talk comics, movies, TV, pop culture, sometimes music, if we get that in there in time. You can stream us live, again, talkingalternative.com. You can listen to the radio show. There's tons of other great radio shows on there as well, too, so I really do implore you guys to check that out. They're streaming constantly. It's a constant stream. Some are live shows, some are replays. Our show gets a lot of good replay airtime on that as well, too. You can stream us live on Facebook, facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire. And on Periscope at Michael_Dolce. That is me. I'm your host, Michael Dolce. Been a comic book writer for a long time. Also done some screenplays and some plays and artist, graphic designer, all this fun stuff. So got a little inside knowledge for you. I want to welcome my next guest, though. We're gonna deviate from Westworld. We'll get back to Westworld. I know a lot of people want to jump on and talk more Westworld, but want to introduce Jason Powell. He's the author of The Best There Is at What He Does, examining Chris Claremont's X-Men. Jason, are you there? Hey, welcome to our show. I apologize that I'm sick today, but at the same time, this will not affect our interview whatsoever. In fact, you can talk more now. So cool. So talk to me about the book. How did you come up with the idea, and how did you pitch this to your publisher?
I guess from going online to talk about the X-Men and feeling like a lot of Claremont wasn't really getting his due. I don't know if that's too much of the old man yelling at the kids kind of that. It seemed like there were people who kind of had come into the X-Men post-Claremont.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't seem to have a lot of appreciation, almost even seemed to have a little bit of antipathy toward him. And so I kind of felt like I wanted to put something out there that was balance things the other way a little bit. Gave some credit to the writer who did so much to sort of build up that franchise into what it is. So I and Jeff Clark had a blog where we talked about comics, and he would be the host. I just went issue by issue and started talking about Claremont X-Men, and he posted the blogs on his blog. And through that, ended up talking to a lot of other people who were interested in Claremont or who were interested in talking about him, and including a guy who was actually working on a book himself, and also a documentary named Patrick Meany. And he did the documentary, which came out a couple years ago through Sequart, and the book was published by Sequart as well. And then I think Patrick realized he was having a little more. I think the documentary thing was more his passion, and he was interested in pursuing more topics through the documentary filmmaking. So that left this kind of vacancy there to be a book about Claremont X-Men, and I had already been lost at that point. So they actually came in. I pitched it to a bunch of different people before Sequart. Well, I pitched it to Sequart, and when I did that, at that point Patrick's book was in development, so they said, well, we already have a book on that topic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of it, I thought, and then it might have been as many as like a couple of years later. It
Wow, that's so funny though. Um, it's funny you mentioned that. I thought one of the things you said that was really fascinating was um, that he's not getting his due. I just listened to Michael Kay talking about Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter did a signing recently for some kids, 7, 8-year-old kids. It was like a charity thing, and he turned and he said, "These kids don't even know who I am." And I'm thinking to myself, "My God, this is Derek Jeter, and he's like maybe 2 years out of retirement." So is that the kind of you know lack of knowledge that you were kind of finding? Is that people just didn't know who he was, or they just weren't responding to his you know thing?
I don't know if it was a lack. Huh?
Yep, you're here.
Oh, sorry, I got kind of a weird connection here, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know that it was a lack of knowledge. It was with everything kind of being available in trade and these days. I think people knew his name, but there seemed to be a sort of I guess maybe just a lack of context in the sense that there's so much X-Men material now. If you go to a comic store or bookstore and look at what X-Men got, the novels they got there are a couple by Claremont, but then there are several by all these other different writers, and so Claremont is just kind of maybe one voice, kind of a voice from the past.
Mm.
And there seems to be a lack of, maybe not a lack of knowledge. I don't want to assume that, but a lack of appreciation for just at one time it was just Claremont, and a lot of the things that there just wouldn't be this huge X-Men fan base if it weren't for him. I mean, before him, it was much more of a niche thing, within that comic book sphere, things from the comics, but in comparison to Spider-Man or Batman or whatever else, the X-Men was kind of on a lower tier, and then it was a pretty small little corner of the Marvel universe, and then Claremont built it up over the course of nearly 2 decades,
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's something I can't believe that. I can't believe people don't have an appreciation for him, but I can believe it at the same time because, once time goes on, and I think you made a great point there where you kind of see his name amongst, other people. Bendis has written X-Men now, and Bendis is current, and Bendis is a great writer, so nothing taken away from him, but yeah, absolutely I could see that. Did you get any input from Chris himself for the book?
Well, only towards the very end. I mean, the book was more or less written. And there were just a couple things that I had thought, it would be nice to maybe, in addition to putting my own interpretation on what happened and what I've read from theories and stuff, to maybe just get it straight from the source themselves and see what I've arranged in an interview. And so I talked to him for a pretty long time, but we just kind of he just went off and talked about lots of different things that he remembered or was proud of, and which I was happy to listen to. So I really didn't have to ask him that many questions because he was happy to just talk. So it was very cool, to talk to someone who's kind of a hero to me. But it wasn't like a huge. It wasn't. He didn't vet the manuscript or anything. And, so a lot of it is just sort of what I've either my own interpretations or just stuff that I've pulled from having researched, editors and etc.
Did you get into how and why he was forced out of X-Men back in '91 at all?
Oh, did I ask him about it?
Yeah.
Or I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, I didn't want to bring that up. I guess I felt like that's a topic that you guys kind of covered in a lot of the news already, so I didn't necessarily want to pick at the wound. I think he's kind of long ago made peace with it, but of all the things to maybe resurrect from the past, that was not really something I wanted to delve into while I had him on the phone, since I already kind of
That makes sense. So here's another question then too. Having gone through his epic run, I mean, you basically went through 18 years. What patterns in his writing did you see that kind of emerged, and which creator do you think he did his best work with, or creators, I guess?
Well, that's sort of a. Well, I'll do to address the first thing with the patterns. I think what emerged to me, and this might have been before I actually wrote the book. It might have just been something that while I was reading, I sort of. There was a certain point where I kind of went and because I had been a fan of the kid as I read kind of the tail end of his run, and also the early part of his run to kind of reprint some at the time it was Marvel Masterworks and classic X-Men were sort of the go-to places if you wanted to read like the really early stuff. And at a certain point, what kind of got me on fire to sort of do the blogs, which later became the book, was that I had gone back. I got it out of college, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go back and actually get all the X-Men, all the Claremont X-Men, and read it all straight through, and just see what it does for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I sort of think about the shape of it in my head now, there's sort of again, just speaking to what you said about patterns emerging, there was sort of a symmetry kind of to it. When I looked at the whole thing, it feels like, for me as a reader, that it kind of ends as it started in many ways. It starts with this very kind of fiercely creative period, and very colorful period in terms of the costumes and the look of the series and the aesthetic, with Claremont working with Dave Coppin first and then John Byrne after that. And at the end of the run, you got the work he did with Jim Lee, which was very much, and Bob Harris was the editor at that time. And both Bob Harris and Jim Lee were big fans of that earlier era, the stuff that Claremont had done with Coppin and Byrne. Lee and Harris had experienced that at GS fans. So when they were both together on the series at the same time, they wanted to do stuff that's harkened back to that and evoke that same feel.
Yeah.
With Claremont being 10 years removed from it, was maybe not so excited by that prospect that he sort of felt like he was going backwards, but he was sort of outnumbered, and it was during a time, I guess arguably maybe this is always the case, but it was certainly true in the early 90s that the editor really had a lot of power.
Yep.
Well, Jim wanted to do it this way, so let's just do it his way for a while. See what happens. So Claremont had to kind of gamely go along with it. So right at the end of the run, you get a much more classically superhero style that was very similar, both in terms of the character they used.
Yeah. Do you find it kind of funny that they just recently announced the X-Men Blue and Gold now? You know, I mean, it's kind of funny how it's kind of going full circle a little bit. It's the timing of your book couldn't have been better, right?
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but from what I've read, Gold theme especially is pretty much the 1980s lineup with Storm and Wolverine and Galactus and Nightcrawler and Kitty.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really going full circle now.
So yeah, in between. Oh, the other thing that was kind of interesting was reading about when Byrne was on the book. The editor was, for the first part of it anyway, Roger Stern, who was good friends with Byrne, and they had a lot of similar ideas, very similar to how Jim Lee and Bob Harris had similar ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And, Stern and Byrne kind of try to sort of steer Claremont in a certain direction and kind of.
Well, he's definitely wordy, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Chris Claremont was a wordy writer.
And so there was an interesting so that was an interesting symmetry. And then in between um, was the era, again, there's kind of a symmetry because right after Byrne, or I should say right after Roger Stern was the editor, it was Louis Simonson, Louis Jones at the time, who was a lot more sympathetic towards Claremont's ideas and really were happy to let him explore. And that's where I think the series became more soap operatic and a little more human drama oriented, and sort of the aesthetic of things changed. And Claremont had kind of the freedom to get less conventionally superheroic, and things got a little more pessimistic, I guess, or darker. Not, in terms of the look, not so many primary colors and things, and in terms of the storyline, a lot fewer out victories, a lot more sort of pure victories, or just out and out losses. And the team roster seemed more free to kind of change and mutate, and members were coming and going a lot more often.
What was your favorite period for him? What was your favorite period in the 18 years then? I mean, because what you're actually talking about, to me, resembles the Siege Perilous. That was like the Silvestri years, which I loved. I actually loved that storyline. I love the idea that they all get kind of mind wiped and spread across the globe. And he spends like 30 issues getting them all back together. But what was your favorite? What was your favorite run?
At this point, I've almost hesitant to say because particularly working on the books and everything all reveal their trends to me on the different eras. But I like the period you're talking about with the Siege Perilous, and right before that, I have a lot of affection for the when they were in the Outback, which went from I think it started right at the beginning of 1988. It didn't actually last that long. It only lasted about a year and a half until he said they went to the Gateway, and that was kind of the end of it. But it's I like that period because that's sort of, to me, kind of the epitome of Claremont's willingness to change the premise and just go in strange directions and not be tied down to any set of givens as far as what the X-Men has to be. It's one of the things that Bob Harris and Jim Lee obviously pushed against.
Right.
And they said there has to be a dimension. It has to be Professor X in charge. All the sort of things that are the standard things that think of the X-Men and that have been cemented by the cartoons and the movies and all that.
Right.
Platonic ideal of what the X-Men have to be. So I like the Outback era because it's sort of really illustrative of how willing Claremont was to not be tied down to any of that, and not take away all the readers' assumptions or subvert any readers' assumptions about what has to be in an X-Men comic.
Yeah. Real quick, we've got about 30 seconds left, and I feel bad because we didn't even get into your superhero musical. But give me your favorite Claremont-ism in the next 15 seconds. Mine is think fast, act faster. That was he says that everywhere, all the time. What's your favorite Claremont-ism? I liked think fast, act faster. That was always my favorite Claremont-ism.
Okay. So did you ask me if I had one?
Yeah, was there one that you picked up that you're just like, yeah, that's a Claremont-ism? Because there were so many that he used to have throughout his books.
That's true. It's weird. Like there was an era where, an era in my life where, because of the blog and everything, I was just to stay on top of it. I was having to read and reread Claremont just over and over, and to the kind of the exclusion of anyone else. They're almost, a lot of those are like almost invisible to me now because I feel like all I read is Claremont, but it's just how people talk, I'm trying to think, sometimes people will point them out and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's Claremont, and that's not just a game that you can say.
Yep. Yep.
Kid. Um,
Well, Jason, we're running up against the clock here, so I'm gonna thank you very much for coming on, and we're gonna have you on again too because you have your superhero musical, which we didn't even have time to get into at this point. But again, thank you so much. And if you want to check out his book, it's the best there is at what he does, examining Chris Claremont's X-Men. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com /Claremont's X-Men. So go check it out there, and you can check out him on Twitter at Jason S.W. Powell. Jason, thanks again. And when we come back, what's next for Westworld? Get back into the Westworld talk. Thanks for staying on with me, Facebook and Periscope. Again, we're broadcasting from a different location today because I'm sick. And normally we do on New York City, normally have the feed from the show going in, but not today. All right. So when we come back, we're going to talk. Well, actually, we're almost back right now. Welcome back, Secrets of the Sire. We do this every week, normally from New York City. Today, though, was an exception because I'm not feeling too great. My voice is a little choppy, you can kind of tell. Set looks the same, the studio looks the same, so if you're streaming us live on facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire, you'll notice I have a headphone set in instead of a microphone. That is usually the only difference, but otherwise, it is pretty much the same show. We talk comics, movies, TV, pop culture. We do this every week at Michael_Dolce. If you like the show, if you love the show, if you, just sort of feel okay about it, I don't care what you think, support us. If you sort of think that, you want to keep us going, go to michaeldolce.com. It'll take you to my Patreon page. You can become a sponsor. You can become a backer, a supporter, and just, help the show go. We've had 47 episodes so far. We got a lot of great guests lined up. I've got guests lined up through February. We got Paul Jenkins coming on. We got Warren Simons coming on from Valiant Comics. We've got Justin Gray. We've got Erica Schultz. We've got Alex Segura from Archie Comics. And we're trying to grab Joel Movie from Comics Drive back in the studio as well, too, to kind of count, to end our year on a high note, because that's what he does. But we want to thank Jason Powell again for his book is The Best There Is at What He Does, examining Chris Claremont's X-Men. Again, you can get it on Amazon. Facebook page is facebook.com/Claremonts.Xmen. And he's also he wrote a superhero musical, which we didn't even have time to get into. 20 minutes goes by really, really fast a lot of times. So we definitely want to talk about that too. Welcome back, Espada Primera Stark, on our Periscope feed. All right, so we've talked about the good and the awesome about Westworld, and we got one more thing to talk about when it comes to Westworld is what's to come with Westworld. But a couple things that they didn't quite do. We didn't talk about the bad. So one of the things that we want to talk about for the bad, and Sam brought this up too, how come no one knows that Bernard and Arnold they look exactly the same? They sort of answer that. They sort of get into that a little bit when Ford kind of suggests that the whole Arnold debacle happened after, the board actually comes into play after the Arnold debacle, that they were partners together, and then when he died, he had to seek outside help. So in that regard, they kind of explain it away, but they don't really give it much detail. I mean, you would think someone would be like, hey, Bernard looks just like the co-founder of this park. That's the one question I have, and Sam is the one that brought that up, and rightfully so. I think it is a glaring, I don't want to say it's an omission or an error, but like you even have the thing where the Asian scientist is like, whoa, that guy's a host? I had no idea, and I get it. He's low level. Why would he know? How would he know? But you would think the chief of security would know. Boy, you really resemble a guy that, co-created this park. I mean, I guess it's 30 years had passed. I guess that maybe they wouldn't know. Now, I'm curious with the security guard who got left in Westworld in episode 9. I'm curious if maybe he was putting it together. That maybe he looked at pictures. Because, I mean, again, yes, I get it. It was 30 years had passed. So maybe you wouldn't. Maybe that's the explanation, right? 30 years has passed. Why would you think Bernard is a host, or why would you think it? Maybe if he even resembled Arnold, I mean, you would never think it. I guess you would never know. But the thing is, they all know Arnold died also, so I don't know. Definitely a glaring error, at least in my mind. But look, if you were listening to us from the beginning, it's a perfect story arc. So now what is to come, though, right? I actually think it doesn't need to go in season 2. I want to see it. I'm not saying let's not see it. I'll be the first one to watch. But we've seen some other real failures. Look at the Matrix movies, right? I mean, that's something that, did it need a sequel? Did it need a 2 and a 3? No. Did Keanu Reeves at the end of the Matrix defeat the Matrix? No. But you kind of thought he was going to. Ed Harris, Man in Black character, has been wanting robots to fight his entire time. Have we seen him fight them for real? No. But it's going to happen. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see any of this. Again, I'm not upset. I'm not telling them not to come back for season 2, which is not coming back till 2018. I'm just merely saying maybe we don't need to see as much as... I'm just worried it's going to go the way of True Detective, right? True Detective was one of the most gripping 10 episodes, awesome shows. Season 2 was kind of like, meh. Clearly, it's almost like a band when they have a breakthrough album, right? Their breakthrough album is usually like their first or their second, or an album that they've been able to produce before they make it big. Once they make it big, the expectation level rises so much that they ultimately don't end up succeeding. And it's always going to be compared now. Malo87, I hope I'm pronouncing her username correctly, she brought it up. Game of Thrones is great. Game of Thrones keeps getting better every season. Right, because you know what? As much as it was one of the biggest books of all time, and it was in the mainstream, it wasn't in the mainstream like it is on TV. He had 6 books to really build a story. And in a novel, you get to kind of go places you might not normally get to go on TV. You get to go places that you get to explore. Kind of like our last guest was talking about Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont had the freedom to explore. He had the freedom to take the X-Men wherever he wanted to, because even though the X-Men were the cornerstone of the Marvel Universe, comic books in the 80s were just rising in popularity. It was gaining popularity. It wasn't until the 90s when it absolutely blew up that all of a sudden he was experiencing, Claremont was basically like, well, now we can't have you do this and this and this. There's too much to lose. One of the things I didn't get into detail with Jason Powell, but it's a great analogy to the expectation level is, Claremont wanted to kill Wolverine. That was his entire plot line. He's like, I want to kill Wolverine. I want to resurrect him as an assassin for the Hand. And Bob Harris is like, we can't have that. Because Wolverine's in 18 different books, and he's our biggest character, and we can't have him be a villain. You can't ruin Wolverine like that. Once you make a villain, that's it. We can't sell, cereal boxes, and we can't sell merchandise, and we can't sell comics. So no, you can't do it. And that was one of the biggest bones of contention that, Claremont had with Bob Harris. Things got too big. This first season of Westworld has now gotten to a point where there's just so much to lose if they don't have this planned out. They don't have the luxury of being planned out. They don't have the luxury of Game of Thrones. Really, really good, though, that they're going to take an extra year to get this thing planned out. Really promising to hear. So what did Jonathan Nolan say about next season before we sign off, though? He said absolute chaos. He said if this was all about control, I was reading an article that says if this season was all about control, who has control over who, next season's chaos. Absolute chaos. So yes, like I said, I'm interested to see what Samurai World is going to be. Medieval World was another one. Interesting to see where they go with the different worlds. Does Ford have a hand in crafting those worlds, those narratives? What about the storyteller who originally who wanted to craft the big narrative and then got forced out? There's definitely plenty to go into. But again, don't want this to be Veronica Mars, where the first season was so good and the rest didn't compare. Heroes, that first season, so great. The rest didn't compare. And True Detective, the Matrix movies. Chime in, hit me up on Twitter. And is that why Espada Primera Stark asked, is that why Penny Dreadful ended at its high? Maybe. I mean, that actually was a ratings thing, actually. They just weren't getting the ratings. Westworld, no problems getting renewed. They got renewed midway through. Shoot me on the Facebook page or at Michael_Dolce on Twitter. I'd love to know TV shows or movies that didn't deserve a sequel. We'll throw up a poll during the week, and we'll talk about that next week. But next week, we want to welcome Valiant's editor-in-chief, Warren Simons, on to discuss the past, present, and future of Valiant Comics. We'll see you next week, 8 p.m. Eastern, talkingalternative.com. And thank you, Facebook folks and Periscope folks. My voice is shot. It'll be shot tomorrow as well, too, but totally worth it in that sense.